A few things I wanted to tell you before we start with the lecture for today. And that is that Joe Donnemeyer has done a wonderful job editing the newsletter. The first offering of it will be out in your mailboxes very shortly. Part of what's in the newsletter, besides news from people in the Academy about their current research, is the list of the 18 new members that we have accepted. And they will be with us at the beginning of the meeting next month as a way of introducing all of them to the rest of you. Let me see. I want to welcome you all to this third lecture of the season. And for those non-members, welcome. Tell your friends we have these wonderful lectures every month that everyone's invited to. Our lecturer today is Helen Fehervary, Professor Emerita from German Studies at Ohio State University. She has published extensively on 20th century German literature, theater, and intellectual history in the works of Bertolt Brecht. Anna Seegers. Oh, come on. Who's
Sorry.
laughing at me?
Sorry, it's I, Helena Gustavo. Forgive me.
Sorry, I've already told everyone I'm not good at this. Anna Seegers, Heiner Müller, Christa Wolf. She has also translated plays by Müller and stories by Seegers. She is the editor with Kirsten Jacobi of the University of Mainz of the text critical annotated edition of Anna Seegers' works, published by Aufbau Verlag in Berlin, of which 12 volumes have appeared thus far. I'd like everyone to welcome Helen to our meeting today, and we look forward to your lecture.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, and I see that Murray Beige is here too, so he's going to understand about the film for sure in the theater. Anyway, oh yeah, so thank you for coming. And I want to thank our dean for helping me, who knows how to deal with photographs, and also Jason Homan, who is here from Academic Affairs and who's going to deal with all the visuals today. And I also want to thank the Emeritus Academy for the grant I was awarded last year that allowed me to go to Leipzig, Germany, and deliver a much longer version of this talk. And actually, that version is appearing right now this month in the Brecht Society yearbook. So I'm going to start, and I've been worried that maybe, okay, Peter Lorre, people know maybe from Casablanca, but Bertolt Brecht, not everybody maybe knows who he was. I'll come right out with it. I think he's the greatest German playwright and poet of the 20th century, and maybe internationally to a certain extent as well. His works are produced all over the world, and especially in difficult times, such as we're living in right now. And leading actors and directors have worked with his plays. For example, from in the UK, from Peggy Ashcroft to Vanessa Redgrave and to Fiona Ritchie, and in this country, Meryl Streep did the Mother Courage in Central Park, and Al Pacino also starred in one of his plays. So he's very well known, and his I'm going to mention the term epic theater, which he's known for. He developed that. So here comes my talk. Born Laszlo Löwenstein in Hungary, Peter Lorre had his Hollywood film persona embody an uncanny strangeness. a soft, unsettling voice, an unidentifiable foreign accent, a face expressing a range of emotions, a supple body with quick transitions from stealth to shrinking cowardice. Thus, Lorre lives on in the conventional imagination as the sinister alien. Peter Lorre made more than 70 films. People forget that he already had 79 theater roles to his credit before his Hollywood exile. After 4 years in Zurich and Vienna theaters in 1929, he began a stage career in Berlin in 4 major productions. His unique acting style was applauded by critics, notably Walter Benjamin, on Lorre's riveting graveyard performance in Spring Awakening, and Jason, maybe you could show that, as the ghost of Moritz Stiefel. His head, full of resigned homesickness for his body, as Walter Benjamin wrote, appears under a headless dummy's arm. Can people see that without the sign there that this meeting is being recorded? What I see on my screen is this, Jason?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, without that sign. Because I can't see that on my screen.
Looks fine.
You hit continue. Can you hit continue?
Should I press continue?
Yeah, go ahead, Helen.
There, okay, now we can see it. Can you see him with his head under the, good. That on first meeting Brecht in 1929, Lorre told an interviewer from Newsweek, I came to Berlin, quote, I came to Berlin with 10 borrowed marks in my pocket and I went to the theater. The manager sent me to Brecht, that was Albrecht. We talked for half an hour and it was as if we had known each other for 20 years. You're not going to get that part, he told me. I felt terrible. It was very Brechtian, really, because he waited a moment and then he said, you'll play the lead in another play I have. Can you put the second one on, Jason? From Man is Man. So that lead would be 2 years later as Galle Guy in Brecht's play, Man Equals Man. And there is Lorre. The other guys are on stilts. This play established Lorre's reputation as the embodiment of an externalized style of acting that epitomized Brecht's concept of epic theater. Anthony Tatlow notes the influence of Japanese kabuki theater. Quote, he wrote, one of the estranging effects was how Peter Lorre, playing Galle Guy, heightened certain sentences by calling them out against the normal rhythms of speech. This drew attention to another level of awareness, to what the character does not know about himself, to what is no longer certain, to what character cannot clearly encompass as it changes and adapts to the pressure of events. And can you show the next one, Jason? Which is also, there he is. And there, this Irish packer who went out to buy some fish for his wife for dinner is turned into a war machine by the end of the play. Brecht was a pacifist and he had been affected by World War I. And okay. At the very time Lorre was in rehearsals for Brecht's play, Fritz Lang was shooting his film M across town. So that Lorre, who played the tormented child murderer in the film, found himself shuttling between Lang's film set and Brecht's stage at Berlin's National Theater. Could you now let's look at this film and then the film clip. We have a film clip from M so you can see him.
Ich kann nichts dafür. Das kennen wir. Vor Gericht kennen wir alle nicht dafür.
He's in front of a kangaroo court here, made up of criminals.
Was weißt denn du? Was redst denn du? Wer bist du denn überhaupt?
Wer seid ihr denn? Alle miteinander. Verbrecher. Bildet euch womöglich noch was ein drauf, weil ihr Geldschränke knacken könnt oder Fassaden klettern oder Karten zinken. Lauter Sachen, denke ich mir, die ihr gerade so gut lassen könntet, wenn ihr was Ordentliches gelernt hättet. Oder wenn ihr arbeitet. Oder wenn ihr nicht so faule Schweine wärt. Aber ich kann ich denn anders? Habe ich denn nicht dieses Verfluchte in mir? Das Feuer, die Stimme, die Qual.
Du willst also damit sagen, du morden musst?
Immer muss ich durch Straßen gehen und immer spüre ich, da ist einer hinter mir her. Das bin ich selber und verfolgt mich. Lautlos. Aber ich höre es doch. Ja, manchmal ist mir, als ob ich selber hinter mir herliefe. Ich will davon, von mir selber davonlaufen. Aber ich kann mir nicht entkommen. Muss den Weg gehen, den es mich jagt. Muss rennen, endlose Straßen. Ich will weg. Und mit mir rennen die Gespenster von Müttern, von Kindern. Die gehen nie mehr weg. Die sind immer da. Immer. Nur nicht, wenn ich's tue. Wenn ich... Dann weiß ich von nichts mehr. Dann stehe ich vor einem Plakat und lese, was ich getan habe, und lese. Was habe ich getan? Aber ich weiß doch von gar nichts. Aber wer glaubt mir denn? Wer weiß denn, wie sie mir aussieht? Wie es schreit und brüllt da innen, wie ich tun muss? Will nicht, muss, will nicht, muss! Und dann schreit eine Stimme und ich kann es nicht mehr hören! Hilfe! Ich kann nicht!
Der Angeklagte hat gesagt, dass er nicht anders kann. Das heißt also, dass er morden muss. Und damit hat er sich selber sein Todesurteil gesprochen.
Thank you. I'll repeat this here if I said it already. M is the first film in which Peter Lorre exhibited the epic techniques that he learned from Brecht. We could talk about that if you want later. Lorre's international renown from this film followed him in 1933 when he fled Germany to Vienna and then London, and then settled in California in 1934. Charlie Chaplin, who confessed he had seen the film 3 times, said, "There is much of the born poet in Peter Lorre. He is a fresh and original talent. He's endowed with such intuitive, emotional, and imaginative powers that he impresses me as one of the greatest character actors." Jason, can you show the next slide? It's from Crime. Okay. Despite his starring roles in Josef von Sternberg's Crime and Punishment, Karl Freund's Mad Love, and Hitchcock's The Secret Agent, Hollywood, wait, can you show the Crime and Punishment slide? I think you did.
He did.
It's okay. Anyway, Hollywood couldn't come up with films to make full use of Lorre's genius as had Fritz Lang in M. Those who knew Lorre's earlier performances believed Hollywood corrupted him. He often resisted studio pressures, but just as often gave in as with the 8 Mr. Moto films, can you show the next slide? Featuring a Japanese detective that made him a favorite with moviegoers in the late 1930s. Lotte Lenya, who had shared the Berlin stage with Lorre in 4 productions, said in an interview, I quote, "It's really appalling what Hollywood did to Peter Lorre. He was such a good actor. Once in New York, I asked him, Peter, will they ever give you anything other than Mr. Moto Goes to China or whatever it was he was doing? And he said, no, all I do is talk a nasal voice and make faces." Typical understated Lorre and not quite true. His signature quirks were always harnessed to a deeper understanding of his craft. The British writer Graham Greene lauded Lorre in Mad Love as an actor of great profundity in a superficial art. John Huston, who directed him in 3 films, wrote in his memoir, quote, "Peter Lorre was one of the finest and most subtle actors I've ever worked with. Beneath that air of innocence he used to such effect, one sensed a Faustian worldliness." This Faustian worldliness had come at an enormous cost for him as an actor forced into exile by National Socialism, the loss of his native language and his cultural habitat. But he turned this loss into the rationale for a new filmic identity. The scholar Gerd Gmunden writes that Lorre's acting style in Hollywood entailed elements of Brechtian distantiation that allow his performances, quote, to be read as allegories about the exilic circumstances under which they were produced. When Brecht and his family, fleeing the war in Europe, arrived in Los Angeles in 1941, Lorre had just completed The Maltese Falcon. Can you show that slide, Jason? Thanks. Having worked in California for 7 years, Lorre was well connected and financially well off. Among his Hollywood friends were Humphrey Bogart, with whom he made 5 films, and Sidney Greenstreet, both there on the slide, with whom he made 8. All 3 appeared together in The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, and Passage to Marseille. Lorre also had ties to the exile community that included his friends from Vienna and Berlin, Billy Wilder, Ernst Lubitsch, and Fritz Lang. Thus, it was only natural that he was quick to provide personal and financial support to the displaced and impoverished Brecht and his family. To Brecht, it mattered most that Lorre was a man in whom he had absolute trust intellectually, artistically, and politically. According to Lorre's biographer, Stephen Youngkin, Lorre's friends described Brecht as, quote, a lost soul turning up on the actor's doorstep with armfuls of books and manuscripts searching for emotional equilibrium. Brecht hated Hollywood. He was very uncomfortable with it. They talked for hours, not about the industry or pictures, but about Nazi Germany, actors that had stayed in Germany, world conditions, Brecht's writings, etc. Conversation often stretched into the early morning hours. Some even thought Brecht lived with Peter. More likely, he slept over rather than violate the 8 p.m. curfew on enemy aliens. Lorre, who employed epic techniques throughout his career and clearly profited from his association with Brecht, liked to say Brecht was, quote, the greatest director of all, a genius, one of the greatest writers of our time. During Brecht's 7-year exile in Los Angeles, they collaborated on several film projects in which Lorre was to play the lead. The Children's Crusade is based on Brecht's poem about children lost in the war. Rich Man's Friend is the macabre story of Lorre's discovery by the Hollywood producer who brought him to California. The Fugitive Venus, also called The Crouching Venus, is a political thriller geared for the box office. Lady Macbeth of the Yards, a modernized Shakespeare set in the Chicago stockyards, came closest to being filmed by Warner Brothers. Their film sketches included The Overcoat after Nikolai Gogol and The Great Clown Emael reflecting Lorre's double life as a man of letters and a public clown. They also worked on translations of Brecht's play Schweik in the Second World War. Alas, none of this would bear fruit. Yet Lorre was eager that these projects, which he also supported financially, be realized, and his enthusiasm for Brecht never waned. Brecht's first English translator, Eric Bentley, described the 1947 opening of Brecht's play, The Life of Galileo, with Charles Laughton in the lead at the Coronet Theater in Los Angeles. He was, Bentley said he was seated, quote, beside Peter Lorre, behind Ingrid Bergman, and in front of Charlie Chaplin. Lorre alone would have been enough, wrote Bentley. He was probably the most intelligent actor I ever met. It is the first night of Galileo, and Lorre is telling me how he would do the play, how he would do other Brecht plays, and yes, he would do all of them. He is known since the 1920s that Brecht is the dramatist, the poet of our day. Jason, can you show the next slide, which is, that's Peter Lorre reading from Brecht's famous poem, the Svendborg poems, which Brecht wrote in Denmark. And this is sometime around the time he read these poems publicly in New York. That was the only time that Lorre did anything public in German during his Los Angeles exile. And and Brecht was very pleased with the reading. Okay, I'm sure, and he wrote about it. Lorre shared Brecht's socialism and anti-fascism. With the Committee for a Democratic Germany, he participated in programs such as the NBC Stars for Humanity with Paul Robeson, and he made shortwave broadcasts to German-occupied territory. With Hedy Lamarr and others, he organized the relief effort Help for Anti-Nazi Theater People in Austria. When the House Un-American Activities Committee, or HUAC, subpoenaed filmmakers to testify in Washington, he joined the ABC broadcast Hollywood Fights Back. Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall, for example, were very involved with this too. Despite his star status, he thought of himself as a political exile, was an avid reader of the classics. He was really a literate, and current events, and he listened to news reports from Europe and to Hitler's speeches. In 1940, he was reviled as a Jew in the German propaganda film, The Eternal Jew. News about the Holocaust, in which his family in Budapest was deported, must have disturbed him deeply. Given his gentle demeanor, his reactions were understated. When in a New England hotel, he learned that it barred Jews, on his way out, he spilled the inkwell on the desk and later sent the hotel a subscription to the Jewish Daily Forward. Writers in the Forward included Isaac Bashevis Singer, Sholem Asch, and Leon Trotsky. Before his arrival in the States, Lorre had witnessed the rise of fascism in Germany. At a meeting of the Committee for the First Amendment at Ira Gershwin's house in LA, he drew damning parallels between the methods of HUAC chairman J. Parnell Thomas and Adolf Hitler. Lorre was monitored by the FBI as a communist sympathizer. Using his comic talents, he duped FBI agents who knocked on his door with a list of names and asked him to identify communists. As if insulted by this meager list, he said he knew many more people than only these few and began rattling off the names of everyone he'd ever known in Hollywood. In 1946, Lorre's contract with Warner Brothers was not renewed. He believed Jack Warner, a friendly witness at the HUAC hearings, had gray-listed him because of his leftist leanings and association with Brecht. His lifelong struggle with addiction now became acute, and he spent time in withdrawal in a Texas hospital. Like so many who were fond of the utterly likable Lorre, Brecht worried about his friend's well-being. He was also anxious that Lorre's health problems not threaten their ongoing work. Believing a theater would be available to him in Berlin, in 1947, Brecht wrote to Lorre's physician, Max Grünthal, quote, "I need Lorre absolutely. Without him, I can scarcely imagine the whole thing. He has to play my roles and the great classical roles too." When narcotics agents in New York arrested Lorre for drug possession, Brecht wrote to a mutual friend, quote, "It's not only that I'm fond of him. I need him urgently in Germany so that my theater can get going again. Right now, I'm trying to disentangle Lorre's muddled affairs. Of course, he's completely in the hands of a racket. Just like Lawton, Lorre lives in shamefaced poverty with 4 horses and several Japanese gardens in a $50,000 villa. That would have been in the millions today. Can you show the next slide? So there he is in Mandeville Canyon at his ranch during this time. It was, he tried to, he wrote a lot. He was on horseback a lot when he was trying to get clean. A day after his October 1947 HUAC hearing in Washington, Brecht flew to Paris. In Switzerland, he staged an adaptation of Sophocles' Antigone. He counted on Lorre's return to Europe, yet the actor was not cured of his addiction, nor would he ever be. Their mutual friend, Elisabeth Hauptmann, wrote to Brecht. She was living at Lorre's ranch. He supported her. Lorre supported many of Brecht's associates with money. So she wrote to Brecht, quote, "Peter has been much better, and it's possible to converse with him 1 meter above the surface of the earth instead of in the clouds." Then came what she called a counterblow. His lawyer refused more loans and advised bankruptcy. Can you show the next picture of Lorre riding on a horse so you can really see that he really was a good rider? He used to give tours at this. He'd take people around at this ranch somewhere nearby. He would take them around. After his arrival in Berlin in 1948, Brecht was still hopeful. Eric Bentley remembered, who also was there in Berlin with Brecht. Eric Bentley remembered that Brecht kept saying, quote, "We must get Lorre. He'd be perfect." Along with their collaborative projects, Brecht's plans for Lorre included new stagings of the 3-penny opera and Man Equals Man, and a 4-hour version of Faust for the Goethe year in 1949. Brecht also wanted him to play Azdak in the Caucasian Chalk Circle. "That's a Lorre role," he would say, according to Bentley. Lorre never revealed why he ignored Brecht's invitations when his own career was in decline. Yet he was not averse to the kind of reckoning with German history that we associate with Brecht, and this resulted in Lorre's 1951 film Der Verlorene, The Lost One. Can you show the next slide? Shot in West Germany, it is a haunting confrontation with the German past around crucial questions of guilt, repression, and atonement. Lorre co-wrote the screenplay, directed the film, and played the lead. At the Venice Film Festival, a critic described The Lost One as, quote, "one of the best post-war German films, splendidly directed and acted." In West Germany, where moviegoers preferred light entertainment, of which there was a lot during that time, critics were less favorable, and the film had a short run. Lorre returned to Hollywood a deeply disappointed man who henceforth appeared in ever more innocuous roles in movies and television. In Harun Farocki's documentary film about Lorre, called The Dual Face, the narrator observes, quote, "There's hardly a film that prefigured fascism as precisely as did M. And there's hardly a film that retraced the marks of fascism as precisely as did The Lost One." In October 1950, after Lorre's arrival in West Germany, Brecht visited him in Bavaria. It was here that Brecht offered him the role of Hamlet in a Berliner ensemble production created especially for him. About to direct and star in his own film, Lorre declined. It's tempting to ponder how he might have played Hamlet. Be that as it may, the visit to Bavaria was Brecht's last overture to his beloved actor and disciple. As for Lorre, he didn't forget Brecht. 6 years after Brecht's death in 1956 and 2 years before his own, he said in an interview with Newsweek, quote, "The only compliment I've ever had about my acting that meant anything to me was from Brecht. In the notes to Man Equals Man, he talks about me for several pages," unquote. The CBS producer with whom Lorre rehearsed lines for his last TV stints and in whom he confided, told Lorre's biographer, quote, "I think he felt had Hitler not happened and had he gone on as Brecht's actor, he would have been himself and been appreciated for what he really was. I don't think he ever found himself again after that." So that's the end. And perhaps just so that Brecht, you can see, we have a 2-minute clip from Brecht's HUAC hearing in October 1947 in Washington. Can you, yeah, there it is.
Is it true that you have written a number of very revolutionary poems, plays, and other writings?
I have written a number of poems and songs and plays in the fight against Hitler, and of course they can be considered therefore as revolutionary, because I, of course, was for the overthrow of that government.
I would like to ask Mr. Brecht whether or not he wrote a poem, a song rather, entitled "Forward, We've Not Forgotten."
Forward, we've what?
Forward, we've not forgotten. Our strength in the fights we have won. No matter what may threaten, forward, not forgotten. How strong we are as one. Only these our hands now aching built the roads, the walls, the towers. Did you write that, Mr. Brecht?
No, I wrote a German poem, but that is very different, you see, from this thing.
Are you now, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party of any country?
Mr. Chairman, I have heard my colleagues and they considered this question not as proper, but I am a guest in this country and do not want to enter in any legal arguments, so I will answer your question fully as well I can. I was not a member, or am not a member of any communist party.
Your answer is that you have never been a member of the Communist Party.
That is correct.
You were not a member of the Communist Party for Germany?
No, I was not.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. That was wonderful. So that's the end of my presentation.
And I'm back. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to be said, but yeah.
Anyone wish to ask any questions or make comments? Please just unmute your mic.
Hello,
can I start?
Sure.
Yeah, I will also start my video. I allow, okay, here we go. I don't know if this is gonna allow me to see me. Oh, yes. Helen, thank you for a fascinating talk. That was very, very informative. I have a few questions about the name Peter Lorre. First of all, well, you say that he lost his native language once he came to Hollywood. So one of my questions is, are we talking about the Hungarian language? Did he speak fluent Hungarian? Or are we talking about the German language?
First of all, his name was Laszlo Löwenstein. Lowenstein, like Lowenstein.
Right.
And, his father, they were a middle-class family in at that time, northern Hungary, today Slovakia. And as many middle-class Jews in Hungary, German was their language.
I know.
So, he spoke German as a child, although he certainly knew Hungarian, you know. Yeah. But he spoke, and he went to schools in German. Yeah. Certainly later, and then later they lived in Vienna. So anyway, that's right.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Think about his name.
Well, my father was also Hungarian and also fluent in German. So I know that history very well, but he was Hungarian. Was his his native language.
Well, I don't. He probably they spoke German with him as a child.
I see.
I assume he knew Hungarian, of course. He played with children and so forth and so on. But I haven't found actually any. I mean, I was born like you, Eva. I was born in Hungary too, or I was anyway. And so I've looked for that, but I found a few Austrian sources about Lorre, but I've not looked for Hungarian.
Okay.
Well, the Hungarians today would not be interested in him because they're politically on the other side. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot more to be found out about Lorre. For example, there's one large biography by this Stephen Yonkin. It's very big, and he also did a volume of his films and so forth, together with his younger brother Andrew Lorre, also called himself Lorre, and but there's not that much otherwise. It's kind of interesting when I started pursuing it. And what also was interesting, it turned out I gave this talk for the Brecht people, and even the Brecht people didn't know that much about Brecht's great interest in Lorre. You know, some of them did, but I was surprised that not more is known. So I've been glad to work on this project because I've gotten to really like Peter Lorre very much.
I can understand why. He seems like an amazing actor and intellectual on top of it. Yeah.
And that's and that. Thank you for saying that. He really was an intellectual. I mean, he apparently Brecht, and he. There's a quote by one of Brecht's associates who said that Peter Lorre, in addition to one other actor, he was the only person Brecht was able to have conversations with. During his Los Angeles exile. So anyway, and Brecht was very smart himself. So sorry, Julia. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you. Helen, that was terrific and so interesting. I have a brief comment and a brief question. The comment, I was so struck when you were showing the photo of Peter Lorre on the Mandeville Ranch. He's there dressed in the kind of Western shirt you can only buy in a Western store, although he's not wearing it the way a cowboy does. And he looks very much like he's acting in that role. And I started to have the impression that this is someone who adapted different roles and had a very sort of malleable personality throughout his life in different languages. That's just a comment. My question is brief. Do you have any idea which role Brecht imagined him for in Faust, as Mephistopheles, or as someone else?
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It may, I mean, of course, immediately one thinks of Mephistopheles, but I mean, he could have played Faust. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, with the two souls, of course, coming right out of M.
Yeah, yeah. I
Sure.
mean, yeah. But he also he would have played the lead in the Three Penny Opera, you know. And Azdak is, I mean, Brecht's own characters were very interesting. They were not your, you know, romantic idol. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Helen?
Oh, Murray, thank you.
Yeah, I was intrigued by a comment you just threw out about Lorre's role in Hungary. Does Hungary ignore him, or does he have a legacy there?
I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I mean, it's actually, I could look into that. No, I mean, this was kind of a disparaging comment on, as you know, I mean, anti-Semitism is rampant today in Hungary.
Mhm.
Actually, it has been throughout the 20th century. And so that was my comment. But I haven't looked into it. Certainly there, I mean, I have family in Hungary who are not anti-Semites. And I mean, there are others who are not, but I've not looked into it. Actually, there's a book that came out in Vienna, in Austria. So the Austrians would have more of a connection, I think, to him, actually, because of the language. And he really, a lot of his theater work was done in Vienna. He even, I just learned from Paul Reiter that he even in 29, he played the lead in Karl Kraus's Die Unüberwindlichen. That too, he played in that too. But yeah, so that's what I meant with that comment about Hungary. It was kind of a joke, but I'm sure there, well, I don't know much about film research in Hungary, you know? So that's that. Yeah, I could look into, that's a good point. I could look into that.
Helen,
Yes,
just a comment. The clip you showed
yes,
when he was the child murderer from the
Yes.
German movie
yes.
was like never anything I've seen before from him. That was a wonderful clip. And it really shows the depth of his acting ability.
Yeah,
And it was just great. Thank you.
indeed. I mean, that's my point. That was my, well, many people believe that was his greatest role. And that that film is available in the OSU library. I mean, it's easily available. And that whole film is really important because a lot of it, I mean, the child murder is one aspect of it only, but it really, I mean, what Farocki said about it showed fascism, the development of fascism, like few others. I mean, that's what's so interesting in this film, not just the child murder, and also the juxtaposition of this child murder, and then the members of this kangaroo court, which are kind of in Germany in 1931, there was populism, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a criminal underground which got away with a lot, and as this kangaroo court. And so from a political point of view, I mean, that's a fascinating film to watch today.
Just
as we
okay.
struggle with these situations in this country and elsewhere in Europe.
Did he ever comment about going back to Germany in 50-51 as a Jew?
No.
You know, I don't know what he, I only know, mainly known what this biographer said. He, of course, he was aware of all that. He brought his father over. His family survived the Holocaust, by the way. His father being, he I'm trying to think. This what I told you about when he was in that hotel and he innocently spilled the inkwell. Of course, he was aware of all that, and he was reviled in this famous Nazi film, The Eternal Jew, right? So, because they knew him from all his movies, and I don't know of comments. I think, you know, I find it very interesting. All of these. This is a very complicated. It's a complex topic. This was so obvious to somebody like him. I'm just kind of speculating. It was so obvious. There wasn't that much need to talk about it the way we would today. You know, there's a difference between. I mean, most people in Hollywood, most emigres in Hollywood were Jewish. And Brecht was not, but, you know, some of these HUAC people thought he was, just like people thought Chaplin was Jewish. There was so of course they talked about all this. They must have, but in some ways it didn't need to be talked about because it was so obvious. Other people can say this better than I can, but that would be. But I haven't found anything. I haven't found any statements on his part. Partly he still had his addiction. He then found a woman there. He married her, brought her back. It was not good. So the question is why he didn't accept Brecht's invitations. You know, he could have had an extraordinary career. But that to me would be the question, why he didn't do it. And I don't think it wasn't simply the fear of going to Germany after National Socialism and the Holocaust, the war. And I don't think it was just that. I think
Surely it was part of the addiction. I mean, Helen, he was very strongly addicted.
Yes, that's right.
You know, and I think what I found fascinating, I watched M when I was really young, and I became an instant fan of his. Okay, since I'm in Helena Gushchila, sorry, since I'm in Slavic.
Oh,
okay?
there you are. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Since I'm in Slavic, obviously I also have watched Sternberg's Crime and Punishment, in which I think he is simply not suited. He simply is not suited for the role. And I think that has something to do with the connection between the external appearance, since externalization was so much a part of the Brecht aesthetic, right? He just is not suited for the part, though his acting there is good. But elsewhere, and I think especially in M, which for me is his quintessential role, and it has to do with Lorre's ambiguity. He's both masculine and yet strangely feminine. He is slimy and suspect on the one hand, yet at the same time he is vulnerable, right? Yes, somebody says he's childlike in a way. Yes, absolutely. He's almost like a sort of corrupted child, you know, in a Henry James sort of way. And I think what is his brilliance in M, where he is absolutely phenomenal, is that he is able to combine this. He is a murderer who is the ultimate victim. Okay. And interesting enough, he's able to convey that in that film, and he utterly fails to do that in the Sternberg. Do you have any comments about that? Why it is that
I
you
think
may not-
partly, I think it's the direction. Apparently,
Ah,
what I've
mm,
read about what I've read about the film is that the Sternberg didn't he just didn't spend much time at all, and the direction was not there, and so
ah,
Lorre was pretty much left on his own, and the production was not. I mean, Fritz Lang was an extraordinary director,
yes,
and so
super
it
direct.
made a big difference. One
Mm-hmm.
thing I would like to say, I mean, you mentioned you used the word vulnerable. I think we talked about what happened to him. Yes,
Mm,
his addiction got much worse, but he and especially you can see that in those last Hollywood films of the
yes.
50s. They're terrible. But I mean, he was such a genius as an actor, and to do what he did, he was very vulnerable. He was a vulnerable person,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's why he hung on to Brecht so much, because Brecht was a very he didn't show his vulnerabilities.
A real mensch. Uh-huh.
Well, Brecht was he was tough, and
Yes.
but he could be very generous, but he didn't have vulnerabilities, but actors often do. And I think what happened to Peter Lorre is simply he kept trying to do what he thought he could do. So he, as Lotte Lenya said, he took on these roles like Mr. Motto, and who knows when it started that he was so talented and he just was acting in all these theater roles before he came, and then he just kept going. You know, it's so I think that's what makes me very sad about it. It's a sad story because
In many ways, yes, I agree.
he was not he didn't speculate. He just he was apparently, people loved him. He was apparently a wonderful person. I mean, people loved him. He's very likable. And,
Very generous too.
and yes. So anyway, so yeah, it's his addiction, whatever. But
Helen, I think you have another
sorry.
question. Professor Hanlon's been trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did Laura have a favorite style or a favorite role?
Excuse me, I didn't hear the question.
Did Laura have a favorite style and favorite role? Not comedic, but as how
Well,
is it?
you know, I quoted from that last interview with Newsweek where he said, you know, Brecht meant so much to him, and so to that extent, one could. That was a big thing for him when he met Brecht. He learned from Brecht. He was influenced by him. Brecht opened a world for him as an actor. You know what you can do as an actor in theater. And that 1931, or already in 29, he had been acting with Brecht. And that role, Guy, that's an unfortunately, there's only a 10-minute or 13-minute film of that you can see in the Brechtia archive in Berlin. And there you can, yeah, that was the big moment in his life as far as learning something about himself and his potential. And then at the same time, as I mentioned, that he was rehearsing with Brecht, he was making this film with Lang, and he was working with two geniuses of film and theater. And he needed that. I don't know, I think actors do well when they have great directors. And so that was a great moment in his life, the film as well as the theater. And but I have no idea. You know, he can't have really been happy with all these Hollywood roles. I mean, after what he did there, after what he did with Brecht, you know, I get sad when I watch Casablanca. I mean, it didn't really allow him to really shine. He always appears as this kind of devious, sly person. That's what they did with him. And you know, an actor, it's a terrible thing to lose your language, especially. You can never be the same acting with a foreign accent. You know, for a writer, and exile is a terrible thing for a writer and an actor, not for a painter, but for an actor, because you're never the same in a foreign language. I mean, it's something we don't usually think about, but think about it, you know? So that in itself is not to speak of the fact that he was in exile. Exile is a horrible thing. You know,
It
and
can actually be a blessing, Helen.
Sorry?
I think it can be a blessing. It's never just one thing.
Right. I don't think for him it was.
No, I don't think it was for him either. But it's the generalization that I'm countering.
I'm sorry. No. Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Comments? Oh, Sabre.
Am I?
I heard someone.
Yeah, this is Richard Green. Is that possible? Perhaps I'm not pressing the right buttons, am I?
No, we hear you. We hear
You
you.
can hear me at least. Yeah, I was very surprised by the idea of.
I think he froze.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, Richard, you froze on us and now we can't hear you.
Brecht wanting Lorre to drunken, boisterous of that. Am I misreading Azdak or?
Azdak in the Caucasian chalk circle?
Did that come through?
I don't know. What did you say about that? The Brecht, according to Eric Bentley, Brecht would have wanted him to play Azdak in the Caucasian chalk circle. Hello?
I think there's a difficulty with his connection. His video's frozen and sound is going in and out.
But I think Sabre Weber wanted to say something. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh. Unmute yourself. Sabre, we can't hear you.
Okay.
There you are.
Are we not?
Okay.
Are we not?
This is such a simple question. Thank you for taking me to a different time and place. I really needed it today. Thank you very much.
Well, you know about those things.
Well, yeah, I think we all do. But anyway, the question is, trying to, when you're talking about being in exile and the connection, it was very interesting to me spending time outside of the US to see what kinds of films, American films, are interesting to people out, in other countries and vice versa. And I'm just wondering, were there...
We're not communicating, perhaps.
What? Were there, am I okay?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Were there certain films that could make the trip back and forth across the ocean? There were people actually, maybe they didn't perceive them in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't speak to people in the same way, but somehow resonated in, for example, films he made in Hollywood, in Europe, or vice versa. Anything to that?
Well, I can really only speak to a certain extent about Germany. I mean, the fact that there's a wonderful documentary film, it's quite long, by Harun Farocki. Andy, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Or Farocki. And so the appreciation for Lorre is there very obviously from a great German filmmaker.
Mhm.
I believe his biographer was a student of a Brecht scholar. Lorre's biographer here was the student of a Brecht scholar, James Lyon, who introduced him to Lorre. So but I don't know enough about that. I have a feeling that in the general people and yeah, the film scholar I quoted, Gerd Gmunden, is a German by birth, and he does a lot on German film, and he's worked on Lorre. So it seems to me, but this is just, I suspect this, really there hasn't been that much American film scholars, but they must. I mean, but I don't know enough about it. His archive, someday I'd like to go there, is on Los Angeles. So there's a Lorre archive, and but I could be wrong, but I really haven't come across much that has been written in this country. I don't know why. And of course, probably in France, he's very well regarded. I mean, obviously people who know about film, such as Murray Beja, what do you think, Murray? I mean, about him and his reputation and so forth.
Of course, he has a certain kind of populist reputation in the sense of people love a number of the movies that he was in, whether they love his roles or not. They
love the Humphrey
did
Bogart.
with Bogart, not Joe, or with Sidney Greenstreet. There's a kind of cult thing there. I do believe that. If I can go back to another, while I have your attention, you asked, or people asked why he didn't accept Brecht's invitations. My guess is it was money. Hollywood may have given him lousy roles,
but they gave him money.
But they paid a lot of money for whatever role he might have had. And he was addicted. He needed the money. I'm guessing that he simply felt, true or not, that he couldn't afford to go to act with Brecht. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my guess.
I think that's a good point. And I mean, Brecht's theater was in East Berlin, but he wouldn't have needed to live in East Berlin. He could have lived in West Berlin. Certainly in the 50s, they were able to. So he, yeah, I think it's a good point. But the irony, the sad irony, is that he died in poverty. You know, at the end, when this CBS producer was talking to him and so forth, he lived in a tiny apartment on a little street somewhere in Hollywood or Los Angeles. So he died in poverty because he used up all his money. So what is money good for, right? It's not. It didn't help him, but yeah, and the addiction probably. Yeah, I don't know if any of you, no, it's not important, I won't, but maybe somebody else wants to say something.
It's moving on a bit past 5 o'clock. Are there any final questions, perhaps?
Richard Green sent his question on the chat to everyone. Maybe we could engage it.
Let me get to the chat.
There's 5 different chats.
Okay, sorry about the audio breakup. My question was that since Azdak is a larger than life character, Lauren's self-effacing persona seems ill-suited to it. Am I misreading Azdak or misreading Lorre?
To that, I would say that well, it's correct that Azdak is a very very boisterous and figure. But I think Lorre would have played that fine. I mean, I think he could have done that very easily, because I don't think he was always, I can't remember the word Richard used, unassuming, was it? I don't think he had to be that way. I think it was the roles he was given by Hollywood mainly. He could have definitely played that figure, I think. Also a very athletic figure. Yeah.
Okay, any other hand waving or question or comment
Or chat.
or chat question? True. Andy Spencer, Michael Caine once said something along the lines of, I have a high standard of living, which means that I have to make a low standard of movie.
Oh,
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't had the chat turned on until just now.
any other comments on chat?
No?
Oh,
I think
okay.
the other ones we heard already, somehow they came up.
Okay, well, once again, Helen, thank you so very much for today. We all
Thank
very
you.
much enjoyed it. I'll applaud out loud for everyone. And good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. Thank you for coming.